you just got handed an envelope. Maybe it was a process server. Maybe she slid it across the table herself. And when you opened it, you saw those words. You felt something die inside of you. Divorce papers. And every part of you wants to believe that this is the end. But I need you to hear this right now. That envelope is not a verdict. It is a warning shot. And what you do next will determine everything. My name is Noah Allen. I help high-performing men rebuild trust, restore connection, and save their marriage using the heroic husband method. And today, I'm going to walk you through why being served divorce papers is not what you think it means, why the way most men respond guarantee they lose, and what it actually looks like to lead through the hardest moment of your life. Stay with me, because this might be the most important video that you ever watch. Now, before we get into it, I want to say something directly. If you are at this point right now where papers have already been filed, or you feel that day is getting closer and you want a real plan, not generic advice, not another book, a structured, proven framework built specifically for men like you, there is a link in the description to book a private call with my team. We will sit you down, map out exactly where you are, and give you a precise path forward. No fluff, no pressure, just clarity. Because the men who wait are the ones who regret it. The link is below. Use it. Okay. Let's get into this. I want to start by telling you about a man named Conrad. Conrad was a high-level operations director, ran a team of 40 people, built systems for a living. When things broke down at work, he did not panic. He assessed, he executed, and he fixed it. He was the guy people called when everything was on fire. But when his wife handed him those papers, none of that mattered. He went completely blank. 16 years, 2 kids, a life built together, and there was an envelope in his hands. He told me later that for about 3 days, he couldn't even function. He was just waiting for something to tell him what to do. That waiting, that paralysis almost cost him everything. Here is what I want you to understand about that moment. When the papers arrive, most men interpret those papers as the final decision, and they respond accordingly. Some get into full panic mode. They call her crying. They show up unannounced. They make promises that feel desperate, because they are. Some go in the other direction. They go cold. They lawyer up overnight. They start fighting back legally because at least that feels like doing something. Some collapse internally. They stop eating right. They stop sleeping. They stop showing up for their kids. And here's the brutal truth. About every single one of those responses, they all send the exact same message. They all confirm the exact same thing that she's been afraid of for years. That you cannot hold yourself together when things get hard. That the foundation that she has been standing on is actually not solid. See, here is what those papers really are. They're not a decision. They're a measurement. They're a result of years of accumulated emotional debt, years of bleeding points that went unaddressed, years of her communicating pain in the only language that she knew, and you not being able to hear it. She did not wake up one morning and decide to file. She got exhausted from waiting for a man that she believed was in there somewhere. And when she stopped believing it, she moved on. Now, here is where most men get it wrong. When they look at the legal document, they see a legal problem. They try to solve it legally, they negotiate, they strategize the divorce, and they think about assets and custody and what the outcome looks like. But her decision was never legal, it was emotional. And if you respond to an emotional crisis with legal maneuvering, you're solving the wrong problems. You're standing in front of a fire with a bucket of sand because someone told you that this is what you do with a fire. The papers are the symptom, not the disease. And I want you to think about something. Think about a football team, down by 20 at halftime. The locker room is quiet. Players are looking at the scoreboard. Some of them have already checked out. They're thinking about what they say in the post-game interview. They even manage the loss in their heads. But every once in a while, you get a different kind of locker room. The kind where coaches walk in and does not acknowledge the scoreboard at all. He does not say it's okay. He does not make excuses, and he does not beg anyone to care anymore. He adjusts a strategy. He makes 2 or 3 precise corrections, and he tells his team there is a full half of the football game left, and the game is still there. Those are the teams that win. Not because the scoreboard changed, but because the leadership in the room refused to let halftime score become the final score. You are at a halftime. The papers are the scoreboard, but the game clock is still running. And the question is, what kind of locker room are you going to create in your own household right now? Now, let me get specific about what actually happens when a woman files for divorce, because most men do not understand the emotional architecture behind that decision. By the time that she gets to the point that she has usually been emotionally gone for a long time, the filing is not the beginning of the end. For her, it often feels like the first breath of relief that she has had in months, if not even years. Think about that. She's not celebrating. She is exhaling. She's been carrying emotional weight that she could not get you to share. And the legal action was her way to finally put it down. What that means for you is that there is still emotions there. There's still pain there. Pain means that there is still something to reach. When a woman feels absolutely nothing, she does not file. She leaves quietly and moves on. The pain behind those papers is actually a signal. Now, the women who are truly done do not cry in the hallway the night before the papers go in. They just go. And even that is them having some self-preservation. There's fight, flight, and freeze. That's a freeze response. So if there is any part of her that still feels something, if there is any part of her that still hurts too, then the door is not closed. It's just nearly shut. And a man who understands the emotional mechanisms of this knows exactly how to approach that door. Not by forcing it open, not by prying or begging, by becoming someone whose presence makes her want to crack the door open herself. That is what the emotional leveling protocol was built for. Not for marriages where things are a little rough, for exactly this, the deepest stages of marital collapse, where she has moved emotionally and legally. And a man has to decide whether he is going to rise to this or let it define him. I have coached hundreds of men through this exact moment, and the ones who come out on the other side all have one thing in common. They stop treating it like a crisis to escape and start treating it like the most important leadership moment of their lives, because that is exactly what it is. Let me come back to Conrad. After 3 days of paralysis, he reached out to my team, and the first thing that we told him was that he needed to completely stop trying to talk her out of anything. No more reasoning, no more evidence, no more emotional negotiations, because every time he went to her trying to convince her, he was asking her to carry his pain too. And she was already out of capacity. What he needed to do first was heal his own bleeding points, not for her, for him. Because a man who is bleeding internally cannot hold the emotional weight of a marriage in crisis. You cannot excavate what is broken between you when you are not stable enough to stand in the discomfort. So he started working on himself, not the surface stuff, not the gym 3 times a week, and hoping that she notices the deep work, the place inside of him where fear has been running the show, where his father's voice, or his past failures, or his own wounds have been driving his reaction for years. And something shifted, not overnight, but Conrad started following up differently. Not more aggressively, not more emotionally, just grounded. Calm in moments that used to set him off. Present in ways that surprised even him. And here is what happens. She noticed. She didn't say anything at first, but she noticed. Because the feminine mirrors and multiplies. She could feel that something was different. Not because he told her, because his presence said it. Over time, the papers became a conversation, and the conversation became a pause. And the pause became a chance. That is not a guarantee. I will never tell you it is a guarantee. But I will tell you this, that path does not exist for men who panic. It does not exist for a man who lawyers up in anger. It does not exist for a man who collapses and makes his wife feel responsible for holding him together. That path only exists for the man who steps into his leadership when it's the hardest, when the scoreboard looks impossible, when the locker room is quiet and everyone has checked out and he is the only one still calling the plays. That man always has a chance. Now, here is what I want to address, because I hear this every time from men in this exact situation. He says to me, Noah, she has already told me that she's done, and does not love me anymore. That she said that she's happier without me. She said that she has thought about this for years. How am I supposed to believe that there is still something there? And here is what I tell every single one of them. Emotions are not stationary. What she feels today is not what she's going to feel in 3 months. If you change what she is experiencing, the feminine is emotional. That is not a weakness. That is just how it works. Her emotions are transient. They shift dynamically. They respond to what is actually happening in front of her right now. She's not a judge handing out a sentence. She's a woman who has been hurt and is responding to years of pain. When you can shift what she is experiencing, you shift what she feels. But most men try to shift her feeling by telling her what to feel, by explaining, by persuading, by presenting evidence of their value. And every time they do that, they're asking her to do the emotional labor of convincing herself. That is not how this works. She does not need to be convinced. She needs to feel something different. And she can only feel something different when the source of the experience is actually different. And the source is you. You cannot talk her back to you. You have to lead her back. And there is a profound difference between those two things. Think of it like this. Imagine you planted a garden years ago and then you stopped watering it, maybe for a long time. The soil dried out, the roots weakened, things died that were once thriving. And now you're looking at it, wondering if anything is left worth saving. You cannot stand at the edge of the garden and explain to it why it should bloom again. You cannot schedule a meeting and present a case for why it should grow. You have to get in the soil. You have to water it daily, day after day, not because you saw a flower appear, but because you decided that you were not the kind of man who abandons what he planted. And here is what I know from working with hundreds of men in exactly your situation. The garden is almost never dead, as it looks in the worst moments. The roots are still there. They're still just waiting for the right conditions to respond to. Now, let me talk about what this actually requires from you, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is hard. This is the hardest thing most men ever do and have to ever do, because it requires you to hold yourself together while she's still cold, while she may be talking to lawyers, while the legal process is still moving, while your kids are watching, while your family and friends are telling you to cut your losses. And you have to stay grounded through it all. Not because staying grounded is comfortable, because it is the only response that actually changes the emotional dynamic. When she pushes and you absorb it, when she tests and you hold steady, when she is cold and you remain warm without begging for warmth in return, that is when she starts to see something different, not because you told her, because the pattern changed and she is in the pattern. She can feel the pattern change before she can even name it. This is what I call a pattern interrupt. When you show up differently in the exact moments that she expects the old you to appear. That gap between what she expected and what she actually got is where trust starts to rebuild. Not from a single moment, not from a breakthrough conversation, from series of those moments stacked on top of another over weeks and months. Consistency over intensity every single time. Now listen, whether we like it or not, men are at the foundations of the family, and the family is the foundation of everything above it, communities, societies, nations. When men break down, everything above them feels it. When men stand up, everything above them is possible. Your children are watching what you do in this moment, not just watching what happens to your marriage, watching how a man behaves when he is under the most pressure of his life. That is the lesson that you are taking. That is the lesson they are taking with them. That is the inheritance you are leaving. So no matter what happens, no matter how those papers eventually resolve, the man that you become through this process is the most important thing that you can give them. Now, if you're watching this and those papers have already been filed, or you're feeling them coming, and you want to stop second guessing and start leading with precision, I invite you to book a call with my team. The link is in the description. It's a private conversation, no pressure, no pitch fest, just a real look at your specific situation and what it is actually going to take to turn this around. We have walked men through this at every stage of the collapse. Emotionally withdrawn wives, formal separations, divorce filings, and in every one of those cases, the men who take action instead of waiting for a sign are the ones who had a real chance. And while you were there, if you want to go deeper into the frameworks I teach, you can grab a copy of the Heroic Husband Method book. The link is in the description as well. It walks you through the foundational principles of what actually moves the needle when your marriage is on the line. Okay, let me bring this together for you. Here is what I need you to take away from this video. First, divorce papers are not the verdict. They are a measurement of emotional debt that has been accumulating for years, and the debt can be repaid, not with words, with consistent, visible, grounded leadership. Second, the way most men respond to being served papers confirms every fear she had about your ability to lead. Panic, legal counterattacks, collapse. Every one of those responses says, I cannot hold this, and that is the exact opposite of what she has needed from you. Third, the path back is not through convincing her, it's through changing what she is experiencing. When the source changes, the reflection changes. The feminine mirrors and multiplies. When she feels the difference, before she can explain it, but she will only feel it if you actually become different, now perform it, be it. I know what it feels like to hold those papers in your hands. I know the darkness. I know the specific weight of believing that you have already lost everything. But I also know what it looks like when a man decides that those papers are not the finish line. They are the starting line for the man he has not become yet. And that man is the one she fell in love with in the first place. He was always there. He just got buried under years of performance and pressure and disconnection. Now it is time to excavate him. Now it is his time to lead, not because it is comfortable, not because you can guarantee the outcome, but because you are the kind of man who does not walk away from what he built. That is who you are. Go be him. If this hit you where you needed it to, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment below telling me where you are right now. And if you're ready to take the next step, click the link below, book your private call with my team. We are here and we are ready to help you lead through this. I will see you in the next video. Bye.